The voice of sharing, 旅人那乡。
ASEAN Breakfast Call. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia. Hi, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And of course, we are starting our day with Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery, with more news from Southeast Asia. And so, Gowri, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I am quite good. Anyway, just to talk about the first thing, as we all know, the most important thing that is happening right now is the ASEAN Summit. Is one of the major issue that it is one of the major events that all ASEAN leaders are putting their eyes on. We realized that last few days ago was huge on APEC. Every discussion and focus were about APEC, but this time it's about ASEAN Summit in Naypyidaw, Myanmar. So what's happening? A lot of things were in discussion, isn't it?
Yes, and this establishment of an economic community by the end of 2015, along with other future plans for development, was the key of discussion, of course, among the top ASEAN leaders summit. And they addressed a lot of important issues, and what's the most important thing about this is that all these leaders actually came together. They made the effort, and of course some of them were Barack Obama and also the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And
Modi, we love Modi.
Yeah, we love Modi. He is the new Prime Minister of India, and
he is looking to invest heavily in Southeast Asia, including and especially in Malaysia.
And according to the ASEAN Secretariat, about 80% of their required measures for the committee have been implemented before the 10 member states strive to build a single ASEAN market and production base. And the summit is also expected to adopt a declaration for the ASEAN community's future vision, which will serve as a basis for comprehensive roadmap and also for the regional bloc beyond 2015.
I'm not sure about whether you have this memory or not, but if I'm not mistaken, according to my very limited memory, this is most probably the first time ever a leader from the US, China, and India come together in ASEAN. In ASEAN and in Myanmar. So
Definitely.
There is something of a history in the making.
It's something that we've been waiting for a very long time to happen, especially with all the issues that we're facing here. Security issues, we have economic issues, we have maritime issues, and for all the leaders to come together and to attend the summit, and especially for Barack Obama to come all the way and participate. And we have the Indian Prime Minister, we have
every Prime Ministers in Southeast Asia, including our dear Prime Minister Najib Razak.
Of course. And so we'll have to see where this is heading. Of course, this is a very good beginning, especially for Malaysia, because we are going to be the host, the chairperson for next year.
And this is something interesting because Malaysia, it's the last time Malaysia ever hosted a major event where all world leaders were present was probably in the 90s, where Tun Mahathir was the Prime Minister. At that time, if I'm not mistaken, was the APEC summit.
But is Malaysia really ready to step up its game and to compete? It's a little tricky to say because we are heading in the right direction, but at the same time we also have a lot of unresolved issues in our own country that needs to be addressed.
Well, not compared to Southeast Asia as a whole. A few key issues that were under the radar. I think one of the major key issues is the persecution of Rohingya. Human rights has always been one of the key issues that a lot of world leaders have somehow not putting their 100% focus compared to economic issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of human rights, of course, we also have that same problem here with all the Myanmar, not just Myanmar, of all the foreign migrant workers that come here to earn a living, to get better economically, and to go back to their country. But we are stepping up our game, especially with the recent budget 2015. We are heading towards becoming a high-income nation, and we are getting out there in the race to compete with other countries.
Apologies for my pessimism. Are we? My question is, are we?
It's interesting that you said that, because over the weekend, I came across an article which I really cannot remember who wrote, which it was a very good article that said, just because we are going to become a high-income nation, it doesn't guarantee that our standards of living is improving, that everyone is being taken care of.
We might be even facing a huge inequality gap that a lot of world leaders, and I'm specifying leaders in Southeast Asia, are not really concerning. When it comes to inequality, Indonesia and Thailand is leading the way, definitely, but Malaysia and Singapore, we are almost one of the top 5 within 10 Asian countries.
Right, and but to look at the social welfare of the people, that's of course another issue, because inequality is another thing that should be addressed, because if it's just about becoming a high-income nation and it's only this one particular group that is really getting better economically, and there are a lot of other communities that are being left behind that don't even have access to basic needs like water or electricity. So if we're too focused on becoming just a high-income nation, all these other important things get neglected, and that doesn't do well for the nation.
Perhaps
in the long
the
run.
government should give a more thorough definition what is and what it is when it comes to high-income nation. What is the definition? So what are the other things that are happening?
We are moving on to South Korea, actually.
Ooh,
And
South Korea. We haven't reported
I think
about.
Grace insists that we talk about this.
The last time we ever talked about South Korea was actually the boat.
Yeah,
the
and
sinking ferry.
it's the same thing now, except that there's been a little update over a couple of days, where the court jails captain of the capsized South Korean ferry to 36 years. So initially he was supposed to get a heavier sentence, but they decreased it to just 36 years. And he escaped. So escaped the sentence, of course, not escape
from the
whole
moved
thing.
to North Korea or something.
And I hope I say his name right, Lee Jun-seok. I'm going to hear it from Grace tomorrow.
He's going to be so mad at you.
Right, and this is something that's been ongoing for so long. Every time you look at the news, there's always something about South Korea and this capsized ferry. It's obviously, well, for us, it's probably just a ferry that capsized, but for them, it's the loss of nearly 36, sorry, not 36, hundreds of people, actually, hundreds of families.
Majority of them are actually high school kids. I think even in Malaysia, if put it in that particular context where a lot of people who died are young, hopeful kids that could have done something great in their lives, but in the end they died. An unfortunate death, and untimely as well.
And this sentence came after a 5-month trial where a panel of 3 judges actually delivered the verdict and the sentence for Lee, who was accused of multiple charges. One is negligence, one is abandonment, and one for murder, because he actually abandoned the ferry and let it sink, and people on board just died, and he did not assume his responsibility as the captain of the ship, or the ferry.
One area that probably Malaysia can learn about from South Korea is the way the authority handle the situation. They really do their investigation, and at the same time they want to serve justice for the millions of the thousands of victims. So this is something that we can learn about it.
We can, of course, and also we have a couple of tragedies that happened this year, and people are still pushing for answers, pushing for a solution. They want to know what happened, and it's the same case here with the ferry.
They want companies to take responsibility, for their action, even though it's untimely and something that they cannot control. But for for certain things they can control. They can control the situation. They can choose not to fly on certain areas that are war torn, for example.
Right, and to go back to that, we still actually have 300 people died in this ferry when it capsized, and the conditions of the search has reached dangerous situations, and it seems that the chances of finding the last victims is not very hopeful.
The last who? How
The
many?
the last about 9 people who are still missing underwater, and the search has been ongoing for about 7 months, and
They are probably skeletons now.
their family is of course very very angry, and they're speaking out even during the trial, asking for a heavier sentence, but the verdict has been passed and he's going to be jailed for 36 years, and hopefully the families will be able to cope with this tragedy.
You watched Titanic before, right?
Hmm.
The captain of the ship supposed to be the last one out.
I was just gonna bring that up. What?
He's supposed to die together with all the victims there.
Yes,
I mean, that would
he
be the
refused
most noble
to
thing.
get out of the ship because he wants to go down with the ship. He said, "That's my duty as the captain."
In fact, it's actually something that is compulsory for any captain of the ship.
and it seems that he refused to actually stay in the ship because he knew what was going to happen, and he left his crew and also all the passengers to die. And but his defense maintained that the captain had only been at the helm of the ship for 6 days, and therefore he was not willfully negligent. But at the end of the day, it's still his responsibility, and he has to take responsibility for it.
He has to make
if
sure everyone is out. Then he can be out.
But he also said that I failed to take necessary measures for the passengers to leave the ship, and I reflect and apologize to the victims' families, to those who lost their beloved sons and daughters. I've committed a sin worthy of death. But of course, they did not pass the death sentence on him, and it's going to be jail. But there's been a lot of outcry as well as to whether or not it was a fair trial, whether or not the verdict was fair. But whatever it is, this disaster also caused a huge outrage in South Korea, and hopefully they will step up their security measures, also safety standards on boats or ferries, and to carefully probe into the failure to rescue the people on the ship, and to prepare for such incidents in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on, we are going to China and Japan, where the two leaders are actually coming together and becoming friends again after a long time. So the last formal meeting between China and Japan actually happened 3 years ago in December 2011. And since then, their relationship has soured because of a little territorial dispute that they had over uninhabited islands in the East China Sea. And diplomatic ties became so bad that the two sides even resorted, they were calling each other Voldemort. That's how sour things were between them. That they
at least they are being cheeky about themselves. They could have just not talked to each other, but since they do this play with each other.
Right, they actually had to bring in Harry Potter into this.
That would be cool, right, Gowri?
Yeah, it
So
sounds
if we
cool.
ever quarrel with each other, we should call each other some Harry Potter names.
Yeah, sure. I'll call you Bugbeak.
That's so cute.
And
I'll call you Haggard.
okay. So both of these sides actually, they finally agreed to recognize and admit that there is some tension between them and they need to resolve it. And that's a good move. Instead of just being sour, instead of resorting to whatever Cold War strategy there is, they actually decided to meet, and they admit that there is tension between them, and they're trying to see how they can resolve it.
Mm.
And when it comes to China and Japan, I guess not many people are aware that the relationship between them is even sour because
Really?
it's rarely talked about. It's rarely in the news. It's usually China and Philippines, China and Vietnam, and now it's about China and Japan. But it's good that they're getting together and talking about it, and they are heading in the right direction. But someone that is not happy about Japan's new policy is actually one of their citizens who set himself on fire because Japan is planning to finally lift the restrictions on the military. So what happened was, ahead of the announcement that Shinzo's cabinet is going to actually loosen all the restriction, and it's a very controversial shift from the World War II stance that happened back then. And because he was against the policy, he actually set himself on fire to show his protest against the new policy by Japan. And moving on to Cambodia, we have the accord that jails more land rights activists over protest. And we seem to have a lot of news here about activists going to jail, don't you think?
Especially in the Mekong River region. And also the issue of land grabbing is one of their key issues that nobody wants to talk about.
Mm-hmm. And it seems that this Cambodian court sentenced 3 female land rights activists and also a monk to 1 year in prison after each of them protested against sentencing 7 fellow demonstrators the day before. So you get arrested for protesting against arresting. That's kind of funny in a way.
That is a great idea. Najib, take note.
Don't give him ideas, okay?
You're the one who say it.
Well, I'm not for it. I don't support the idea, but it's interesting that that's what they did. But according to these villagers, actually, the a lot of these people who often protest against evictions are always met with some violent reaction from the authorities. Whereas last month, the victims of the land grabs called on the Hague-based International Criminal Court to probe their mass evictions as a crime against humanity by the state. So it seems that the state intervening and arresting these people and coming up with violent measures as opposed to probably having a talk about it, because this happens everywhere when it comes to evicting people from their land, from their homes.
Oh yeah, that's true. Land grabbing is a major issue in Southeast Asia, especially in the Mekong River region, where development is still very much an issue that is a bit contentious.
And another country that's also facing something similar is Thailand, and you probably know about this already, where the book called A Kingdom in Crisis by Andrew Marshall actually got banned by Thailand officially.
What? I'm so surprised, Gowri.
It's an official ban. So if you are in Thailand and if you're found with that book, you can go to jail for like 3 years. So be careful if you want to buy the book.
This is something that we already foreseen when we did that interview with Andrew Marshall.
That is true, but at that time, of course, people were not encouraged to buy the book, but it wasn't officially banned by Thailand because, of course, that book is very detailed about Thailand's history and where they went wrong and how they can fix it.
See, Thailand government, you did the wrong thing. You see, in Malaysia, once you ban a book, it becomes a bestseller.
It's true. They are actually helping him to publicize the book, you know. People probably didn't even know the book existed, but now that they made such a big deal out of it, people are going to be like, oh, what is this book about? Like, I got to get my hands on it.
In fact, his book right now is one of the, I don't know what to term the category, but one of the top, the best-selling or the top books within that particular category of Southeast Asia.
Well, it is a very...
In Amazon.
It is a very controversial book, as Andrew himself said. But if you don't learn from your history, if you don't want to analyze it, and someone has already done all the analysis for you. Like, shouldn't it be easier for them to just read it and probably find out what went wrong and how they can fix things? Because
so Thailand people, if you cannot get access of the book, you can
call
always
Arlene.
you can always order it online via Amazon. You can
And then the postman is going to jail.
they wouldn't know about it. And you can always order it on. You can always purchase the ebook. And of course, you can always listen to DurianASEAN.com. We had a podcast at our YouTube channel
With Andrew Marshall, of course.
explaining the summary of his book and why he wrote the book.
And I guess that's all the time that we have for this morning.
So stay tuned. The next one, we will have another guest for Blast from the Grassroots.
Of course, don't forget to like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and
And the one.
and if you have a smartphone, what can they do, Arlene?
They can always go to their TuneIn store. Sorry, go to their app store and then go and download the TuneIn app and search for Durian ASEAN and listen to us live.
So we'll see you later.